we do a little bit of price conditioning, establish that we may not be the cheapest. Now, just for clarification, the company I worked with in Australia, they sold a premium line. Your company uses a price lining strategy, which is also known as good, better, best. So if you blew somebody out of the budget with a certain material, you could always come back and say, well, we can do it in this laminate, or we can do it with this, right? So you can change up the job a fair bit to meet their budget if they were willing. And the company I worked with, if you couldn't justify the dollars, they walked that business because they just wanted to sell a premium line. So a little bit different environment than you're doing. But in this case, we always let people know that we won't be the cheapest option, which is probably not going to be the cheapest option. Then what we do is we let them know we're going to communicate the investment for the project today. Now, if you prefer to do 2 steps and come back to them with drawings, especially in a complex job and so forth, then that's how you would set up this intention statement. You would set it up in a manner where you would explain that here's what we do. First day would come out, we measure, we talk to you, we make a few choices, then we go back to the shop, we make the design, then we come back and present, and we'll tell you what the estimate will be. If that's the way you run your business, then just explain that in this agenda setting statement. But if you're prepared, which most of you are, have systems prepared that you can quote on the job, on the site, then let them know you're going to do that, and then get an agreement for the time. And this is where I see a lot of consultants really mess up too, is they'll get in, they'll build rapport, and they'll say, okay, all right, so let me take a look at the area, and all of a sudden they're going, well, can you just measure this, give us a quote, because we got to pick the kids at 2. We thought this was going to take about 15 minutes. Now most of you probably do that on the phone ahead of time, which hopefully you do, but you probably need to do it again at the home. Make sure you do it at the time. And I'll show you how this all comes together. And then finally, we want to pique their curiosity about some kind of an offer. And it doesn't, don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying you got a discount price. It could be that you have some installation windows, you can do it more quickly. You might have certain savings or specials that you've advertised that expire. But somehow we want to pique their curiosity that we might have something special for them if they decide that they like what they see, and if they can make the decision today. One of the things we use, and you may not like this, but we call it a first visit bonus. And we actually explain to people it's a logical economic argument. And we would just say, we tell people right up, listen, here's how we do business. We explain the process. Many times we come into a home and the homeowners really like what they see. They're happy with the quality of the work that's proposed, and they heard about the company, maybe they've been referred, and they decide to just go ahead and commit the job and get it scheduled while we're here. If you can do that, it saves us a lot of money. Because when we don't have to, we don't have to come back, we don't have to chase a lot of things, and so we're happy to share that with you. So if tonight, and I'm not saying you will, it may not even make sense, but if tonight you found something you liked, we'd be more than happy to share some of that savings with you in the form of a first visit bonus. And once I figure out the job, I can tell you what that might amount to. Would that be fair enough? And that's all you're doing to create this peak of curiosity. I've got a memory taking statement. I don't know if any of you have gone to Dale Carnegie or some of the other memory aid speakers that are out there. They talk about ways to memorize things so you never have to forget. So I'm using a memory pegging device here, visual pictures, to help you remember the elements of this attention statement. And it really helps you to remember it, and then you can craft it as to how it might work for you in your business. I find lists of things that you just use these pictures. It's easy to remember them. So it's just kind of a group of goofy pictures, and in an order that help us to remember. So now I'm going to put in a bit of an Australianism. My friends are giving me a hard time because I use a lot of words now that I learned over the last 2 years that they don't use here. We don't call it an elevator in Australia, we call it a lift. They don't call it the trunk of the car, they call it the boot. They don't call it a dumpster, they call it a skip bin. And one of the things to take out food is called takeaway. So you would see takeaway, that's what they would call it. So remember, the first thing I suggested in your intention statement is you wanted to create a takeaway. And so that's this Chinese food up there, taking it away. So the first thing is, hey, this might not even work. And so you want to create the idea that you may not qualify for it, you may not be able to have this. The second thing is we're going to measure, right? We're going to measure up the area, and I need your help. I'd like you to stay with me on that one. I'd like both of you to help me because I've got some critical questions. This is a way to really shorten up the appointment too, because you can ask all those diagnostic questions while you're measuring and looking at the area, And the key is to not get too far into presentations then. Just take it in, like a good doctor. Take in all the information and then consider it before you prescribe. I'm going to educate you, but I'm in a place to do that. I'd like to sit down if we could, if there's a patio or a kitchen table is probably the most likely place. I'd like to take some time to educate you about what's available in the market. Sometimes it can be a bit confusing. I suspect you may have done some research before you had me in, and I just want to dispel a few myths, make sure you're making an educated decision on what's available. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to present the terms and the scope of work to you. All that's going to take about 60 minutes. Does that work? And that 60 minutes may or may not be the number you want. I don't know what it is. It could be 90, it could be 45. The average appointment, probably 60 is about right. After that you start losing attention span. Obviously, if you're doing well and it looks like you're going to write the business, then what will happen is it'll carry on and you'll go as long as it takes to do it. I'm sure many of you have set the ride to the home at 7 and at 10:30 you're writing up the order. But normally, 60 minutes. I don't say an hour, because an hour sounds a lot more. I say 60 minutes. And sometimes I say this is all going to take about 60 minutes, depending on the questions you might have. Is that fair enough? And I get the commitment that they're both going to stay with me for 60 minutes. And I need them both there, because I want to be able to properly quote and estimate this job. And then I'm going to kill the cat with curiosity. So that's the visual, right? The curiosity shot, the cat got knocked out. So I'm not a cat hater, so don't look through. But it just is a visual that reminds us of the things we want to do. So in this case, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to create this closing sequence all in about in a few minutes to set the stage. And that's really what I want to accomplish. Stand up, everybody. This conference is called Move, and we're going to move a little bit. Stand up real quick. Do me a favor. We'll stretch out a little bit. What I'd like you to do is kind of raise your hands up in the air. Try not to hit your neighbor. Count of 3. You're going to bring your hands down, and you're going to clasp them together, and you're going to just notice which way your kind of thumbs fall as your hands clasp together. Don't try to just do it the way you naturally do it. So ready? 1, 2, and 3. Now look down. How many of you had the left thumb fall over your right thumb? Left over right? Yeah. Studies show that the folks that went left over right have a higher than average level of intelligence. You're great thinkers. Congratulations. It's proven. I want you to do it again now. How many of you had right over left? Right over left. Those same studies revealed that those that went right over left had a higher than average level of sex drive. They're very sexy. Did any of you find that your thumbs just kind of fell side by side? That just means you think you're sexy. All right, we are going to do it again. So let's stretch out. Try not to hit your neighbor. On the count of 3, you're going to go and bring your hands together, but you're looking for the opposite. It won't be easy, I promise you. But just if you were left over right, you're trying to hit right or left. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. I can't even do it. I've been doing this for many years, and I still struggle. And for those of you that did that, it feels uncomfortable. And it would be like if a golf pro came and tried to help you with your swing. Right? The things they would ask you to do would feel uncomfortable when the first time you address the ball. For some of you that clean out a garage, what's the first thing you have to do? What's the first attempt at any order is always disorder. Right? So you have to get uncomfortable to get more comfortable. When I graduated high school in 1979, and most guys back then, and those of you that share that kind of genre with me, we didn't take typing classes. The smart ones did, because that's where all the girls were. But most guys didn't take typing. We never thought we'd use that skill back in high school. And then I get thrust into the world of computers. And I'm called on to do typing. And I used the hunt and peck method, which many of you are familiar with. And I got to a point where I could use 37 words a minute in hunt and peck. Not too bad, 37 words a minute. But the demands on time management require more than that. And I realized if I want to get better output, I needed better input. So I took the Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing class. And Mavis taught me the home key method. She told me I could no longer, use a couple of fingers. I had to use all 10. And then, of course, she told me I hated Mavis Beacon because she told me I couldn't look at the keyboard anymore and look at the screen. And those of us that have learned typing, you understand there's some skill to that. And my typing went from 37 words a minute down to about 10. It was terrible. But I stayed with it. I played all the little games they have, and I focused, and I went through the pain, and I finally got myself to about